All right, Chris, you're handling Craig this time.
Yeah, Craig, I need you to go outside and shoot anyone that has a firework. If they're shooting fireworks off, just take them out.
Yeah, when the cops come and ask about it, just tell them it was fireworks.
Yeah,
today is too important of a day to be interrupted by fireworks.
That's right. It's July 5th anyway. The fireworks are over with.
No, they started July 1st. They don't end until July 10th.
That's fair.
Oh, anyway. Yep.
America. Well, I suppose you're helping the American economy because if you expand your arsenal of fireworks, new ones must be bought. I get how this works.
Yep.
That's
but aren't all of the fireworks bought from China though? So they're really helping the American economy.
No, don't talk about that.
Don't confuse me with the facts. My mind.
Sorry.
Yep. Right. Anyway, we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. I'm Jay. I'm joined with my co-host Christopher, Christian, and Dan. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hello there.
Hi, guys. Just hi, guys.
He participated. He did it right.
Wow.
Because we have an important guest, and I'm trying to be professional.
We do. But before we get to the guest, Christian, where can they find us on social medias?
You can find the Grumpy Dungeon Masters podcast on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast. You can also find us on YouTube, and you can keep an eye out for us streaming on Twitch TV on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. About to start a new game of some sort.
Yeah, we don't know 100% what yet, but soon. So our guest this week is Mr. Ed Greenwood. Say hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So this is our 6-year anniversary of Grumpy Dungeon Masters. We started July of 2020, and you are always the guest that I would want on this podcast. So if I'm a little giddy, if I'm a little happy, a little crazy, a little stalkery, I apologize in advance. I know, Gary Con, 2 years ago, I've kind of followed you around the entire time, so I'm glad I didn't scare you away.
I'm honestly surprised there wasn't a restraining order.
Yeah.
He did hire bodyguards, though, right?
Yeah.
No, they came with the con. It was great.
Perfect.
If you'd like to hire me as a bodyguard, since I am like 6'9",
he is the Brute Squad.
Yeah, he is the Brute Squad.
Yeah.
I've never needed my body guarded. I stand around on street corners saying hi, and nobody ever assaults me.
That's nice.
It's sort of depressing. It means I'm not leading man material.
Oh.
No, you are to me.
Oh.
All right, quit kissing his butt and let's get to it.
It's such a great butt, though. It's nice and firm.
No,
you've been peeking. Oh.
Professional.
Nope.
Oh yeah, professional. Sorry, professional.
Sorry, he was being the neighborhood professional there for a moment. It was great.
So unlike any other guest that we've had on the podcast, I wrote questions down for forever because there's so many interviews out there where they talk to you and they ask the same questions like, when did you start writing The Forgotten Realms? When did you know that you want to be a writer? What influenced all that? And the answer is always like, you were 5 years old, you read your dad's pulp magazines and his books in his den, you pounded up the stairs and asked him, where's the sequel to this? Sorry, son, the author's dead. You have to write some more. And it's the same answer over and over again. And I don't want to ask any of those questions because people have heard them and I don't want to retread lost ground. So I spent the better part of the last 6 years trying to think of questions just for you that the people would actually, I think, find more interesting. And I'm glad to be at a point to ask those.
Yeah, I have my answers. Circumcised, way far too much. Not those questions.
No, okay.
What is your current
average airspeed of an unleaden swallow?
But I have a lot, and we kind of talked as a team over the weekend. I'm going to kick it off with my fellow Grumpy DMs. Let them ask a question first, because if I start asking questions, I'm not going to stop. So,
that is very nice and true.
yeah.
Okay.
So, Jay,
Fire
why don't
away.
you go ahead and ask the first question?
Oh, okay. I guess I can do that because the question that I had that I specifically kind of wanted to know the answer to. So the Wizards 3, Dalamar, Mordenkainen, and Elminster. I used to love reading the articles about the Wizards 3 in Dragon Magazine when it was still a thing. Sadly, it's not here anymore. But I was very curious, how did those articles come about? Because they're from 3 separate worlds. Did you have to have permission to pull those other guys into Elminster's, process, or was it just you work at Dragon? These are the characters you can operate with. Like I'd love to know
okay.
that.
Okay, so I was never on staff at TSR or at Wizards.
Okay.
I was always a freelancer up in Canada. In those days in Toronto, in Ontario, Canada. Just a freelancer, just a fan like everybody else. So Jake was Kim Kask had just retired. Jake took over as editor of Dragon. He hired a journalist, not a gamer at that point, Kim Mohan, to be his assistant editor, who was actually putting the magazine together. I was writing articles and just mailing them in, and Kim got the job of reading the slush. And the first thing he did was open my article that ended up in Dragon 37, Gates article. When the city of Brest did Orc Pass in one small step. By the way, I didn't come up with any of those titles. That was the editorial staff. They got to title everything, whether we wanted them to or not. and he was vastly impressed because it was the first article he'd ever received that had footnotes. So he said, "Are you coming to Gen Con this year?" And I said, "I am now." So I got on the Greyhound bus, kid, and went to Gen Con and met Kim Mohan, and he said, "Let's take a walk." That was Wisconsin Parkside. So you just banged open a glass door and you were walking across a park, university grounds. And he said, "How'd you like to be a contributing editor for Dragon Magazine?" And I said, "Great. What does it pay?" He said, "That's the contributing part." But what Kim wanted, when you're doing a magazine in those days, it grows or shrinks by 8-page signatures, depending on how much ads you receive for that issue. So you need to be able to make a laid out magazine, which was laid out the old way. There's no computers yet. It's waxers. Like you print the stuff out, you cut it with an X-Acto knife, and you roll wax on a page and you lay the text down. You need to be able to make the laid out issue expand or contract. So Kim needed a journalist, somebody he could call up at expensive long distance rates. This is how long ago all of this is.
Mhm.
There's no internet, and say, "Ed, have you got anything lying around on magical doors, shields or swords, whatever?" Because we've got a theme for this issue. I need it to be about 2 pages long, deployable, because he knows how much space he wants filled. Okay, so that's how I got the contributing editor job. The Wizards 3 article was an assignment from him because he was told by his bosses, and Jim Ward was the overall boss above the magazine. We have these worlds that we're not publishing anything for. Greyhawk, Dragonlance, we're not supporting them. Need you to keep mentioning them in Dragon Magazine. We need to find a way to do that. I said, why don't I do articles that everybody will read because they got new spells, new magic items, and occasionally new monsters in them. And they're magical books. Because the pages from the Mage's first article, Gary Gygax had really liked and had actually written a letter to comment on that the magazine printed. "I really like this, do more of it." So I thought, okay, this way, people will read the articles even if they don't care about the Realms or Greyhawk or Dragonlance, because they want the new spells or the new whatever.
Right. They want the newest thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that was an editorial assignment. Put in, have some way, and I said, why don't neutral ground is our Earth, so it'll be my place because Elminster's here to raid my pina coladas and ice cream and chip dip, and I will hide in the suit of armor. The artists love that, and these three wizards will try and one up each other, and I couldn't mention Raistlin because his fate was then unknown in Margaret and Tracy's novels, and I didn't want to tie their hands. Yes, anyone on staff could have gone down the hall and talked to Margaret at that point because she was still working in the building. But the whole point was, no, don't tie their hands as authors. They don't want to reveal what's happened yet. So we'll have Dalamar.
Yeah, I had always wondered why it was him and not Raistlin. There we go.
And that's number one. And number two, I think the last two articles of Mordenkainen vanishes. And he's replaced by Elthrine, a female. And that was to get, somebody who isn't Sausage Fest in the room. But the reason why we had to replace Mordenkainen was because something had happened to him in the game. And of course he'd gone nuts and was being nursed back to health by Elminster and Storm. But that was not yet known to the public, so I had to replace him. But that's how I didn't have to get permission. I was actually asked to do it. And I said, why don't I do this? And they said, brilliant! because it's a way of putting all three worlds together in articles that people will read anyway, whether they don't like that setting or do like that setting. Because we had a lot of gamers in those days who said, well, I don't use Kryn, so I'm not going to bother with it. It's wasted pages in the magazine. Or I don't use the Realms, or I don't use Greyhawk setting, or, so it's wasted pages. But if you put in the new spells, magic items, and occasional monsters, I got to take those from my campaign. So I'll read it. And then you make sure that there's some dialogue and they come alive on the page. And then there's something to read. And it's like, so Mordenkainen likes this, and Elminster likes that. Tell me more, because you're bringing them to life as people. And so it became a long-running series. And that is all, of course, down to the brilliance of Kim Mohan, who said, hey, Ed, why don't you...
I think the current Wizards 3 is Illustrial Tasha and Mordenkainen. But not Tasha as she currently is, Tasha as she was when she was 20, because the current Tasha decided to not help Illustrial and sent a message to herself back in time to have her younger self help her instead. Which is really weird. That was in the Ruins of Vecna thing, and that's my only exposure to the Wizards 3. And so they come a long way from raiding your fridge to now sitting in Sigil.
Well, I much always although they're more date say. But I'm always against time on your games because it's such a can of worms.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
As I used to say, he had a short story in Melancholy Elephants about a gangster from Chicago who goes back in time. He said that there was a pair of ducks in the time machine. I looked all over that closet. No ducks.
No ducks.
But he said there was a pair of ducks in there. And that sort of thing. And I thought, you put your finger on it, mate. Anyway. I'll shut up now, because otherwise you'll never get another question. I'll just... No,
we'll just keep recording for hours on end. All right, Christian. Christian, go ahead. I know you had a really good one.
Did I? Well,
beautiful comic timing there. That was just brilliant.
Huh? What? I mean, I can text you what you told me yesterday, but...
Yeah, I know. Like Jay, when I was a young man, first started out playing D&D, I was subscribed to that Dragon magazine that came in the mailbox And I remember reading a series of articles called Worms of the North that talked about the dragons of the Forgotten Realms. And I loved seeing these kind of dragons get names and personalities and deeds and things that they were up to in the realms, instead of just kind of being generic. And that was always one of my favorite things, is to read the new Worms of the North article. So what I want to know is there a favorite one of yours of those articles? And was there a dragon that you wanted to write about but never got to?
Okay, so I would think Eldenser, the worm that hides in blades.
Yeah.
Or the one that hides in the mirrors. They're the most fun because they're the most unusual. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of dragons they wouldn't let me write about because they were ghost dragons. They were undead, but not Dracoliches. So they wouldn't let me include them because they were that much different. And there was one that I never got around to, Inverno or Inferno of the Star Mounts. And if you are a Greenwood's Grotto member on Discord, somebody asked about Inferno, and I just wrote it up and threw it on the Discord for them. So there's an entire Worms of the North for free there. It's also on my Patreon and blah, 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 blah. You know, oh, wait a minute.
No, plug your Patreon.
No. Maybe it has not. Maybe it has not gone up on the Discord yet. Maybe it will be a Patreon post only for the next little while. Anyway, some of them I put on for free. Like somebody asked about the city of Procamper, and they asked on Twitter, and my reply was like 5,000 words. See, I've got white hair and a beard. I don't have enough years left in my life to chop that into tweets. So I just said, it's on my Patreon for free. Here's the link. So that they don't have to join my Patreon, because I think that's dirty pool. But they get the answer. So there is a complete write-up of Inferno of the Star Mounts, the red dragon who lives in the center of the high forest in those peaks. At some point, somewhere, somehow.
I got kind of a bit of follow-up question to that. I know you have your Patreon and you put a lot of stuff up on there for free. Do you ever check out like the Faerun Wikipedia at all? And like, I know they update it based on your articles and your YouTube videos. Do you get on there at all as like an editor and like just fix the problems?
I don't edit. I don't have time.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And the other thing about wikis are, years and years ago, on my regular Wikipedia page, some of the library ladies I work with fixed some spelling mistakes, publication dates, ISBN numbers, and the editors pounced on them and said I was editing my own page and changed them all back to their incorrect versions. And the ladies who are librarians and whose job it is that they're paid to do in real life is to fix cataloging errors were quite miffed about this. You know, and it's like, guys, we're correcting your mistakes. No, you're not. You're an author masquerading as library lady, self-promoting. So, of course, that makes you, I'm not going to touch Wikipedia at all for any reason, never again. Because, you know, first of all, I don't have time. And secondly, if every time I do, somebody's going to jump down my throat and change it back again, I've had unpleasantness that wastes my time. So, I don't edit the wiki. I do get questions at the Discord all the time that are from people who are obviously at work on one of the existing entries. Yeah. Okay, they want more stuff.
Yeah.
It's up to them what of my stuff they take as canon and what they ignore. But that's because I don't control the wiki, so it's up to them. But my whole point in this is to answer lore questions, try and make a big tapestry that makes everything work together. And there are 2 or 3 gentlemen out in the world, Brian Cortijo when it comes to Cormier, and Eric, Logan Boyd, and George Krashos. Eric's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. George Krashos is as far away as you can get in Australia. And they work together to explain away contradictions in published Realms lore products and just come up with an in-game solution.
I mean, we're all nerds, and someone was definitely going to do it.
Yeah. But it's lovely to see. My whole thing in this is to create as vast and detailed a living world that all hangs together in a coherent tapestry. You don't have to use it all. You don't have to spend your life's earnings tracking down long out of print obscure products. But if you want that level of detail, you can just take what you want from the published realms. But somebody somewhere is trying to make it all make sense and cover everything. I will die with the work finished. But
yeah. I mean, that actually kind of leads to one of my questions, and I apologize to Dan, but like one of my questions is as the father of the Forgotten Realms, how do you feel about what other writers have done with the Forgotten Realms? Since there's no other world or IP out there where people can kind of craft these canon events and put them out in the world.
Well, there's a lot of them actually. Cthulhu, Sherlock Holmes, as it comes out of copyright,
Yeah, but I mean, but your world is very different. Like, you have so many different authors that kind of do it. Is there anything that like you really liked that was an addition to the Forgotten Realms that kind of stood out to you that you were like, oh wow, that's a great idea. I'm surprised I didn't think of that first.
Not so much big creative things, but detailing things. Like when Bob gave us Menzo Branson in Homeland, the chronologically first Driz novel, published first. I thought that's brilliant. He's brought us to life. When Elaine Cunningham, with all the various Erland and Danilo books, explored Waterdeep, I thought she was reading my mind. She was getting everything exactly right. And of course, what she was doing is reading everything that had been in print over and over again, tamping it down in her mind, and then writing so everything was, quote, correct to me when I read it as a reader. And that was the delight of having other authors at work. My world can surprise me for the first time because I can come across a detail I didn't put there. That is, of course, a two-edged sword. There were times when we were doing the Avatar stuff, I was going, what is going on? Because I was reading about Harper Troopers and stuff, and it's like, it's not the American Civil War, guys. And there are always a problem when somebody it's a problem, and it's a reader has as well as every creator. Somebody does a movie version. You go, oh, I got character wrong. Well, maybe they did, or maybe they didn't. What they did was depict them differently than your headcanon. So to you, that character is wrong. But thankfully, there have been far more delights in the realms than what were they thinking, and of course, part of that is there were people at TSR who wanted to use the realms to retell things of history. So they put in the Dragon Wall, the Great Wall of China. They put in the Tegan Horde, the Mongol Horde. They were putting stuff in from history. And I was going, no. Because every time you do that, you're jerking my head out of this fantasy setting into our real world history. And you also have some gamer at the table, because gamers are gamers, who will sit there and go, the stirrup wasn't invented until, so you've got that, and you're going, and none of that needed to be there. None of that needed to break the immersion of the fantasy setting if you just hadn't borrowed from real world history. And of course, that reached its zenith, or nadir, if you prefer, when we had Oriental Adventures and somebody trying to literally do a fantasy version of another culture and plug it into the realms. Now, I can't bitch too strongly about that because I was warned when they bought the realms. This is going to be our kitchen sink world. We have these Egyptian pyramid modules. We need a home for them, so we're dumping them in the realms. We want to do Arabian adventures, which became El Khadim. We want to do Oriental adventures, which, gosh, became Oriental adventures. We want to do jungle adventures, which became Malatra, the living jungle. We wanted to pirate adventures. We want to put all this stuff in. So I knew they were going to do all that stuff. But there's ways and means of doing it in which it feels like its own world and not a copy of you were born in history class and the teacher was droning on. So you took this cool bit and you just put it into the game.
That kind of leads to another question. And again, I'm sorry, Dan.
Poor Dan!
Thanks for letting the other GMs go first, buddy.
Well, because it's a perfect segue. That's the problem. Is there a part of the realms that you wish you could go back and readdress, or a part of the realms that you would wish someone would kind of take and add more to it? I mean, we all know WotC owns the Sword Coast because that's like their bread and butter. It's the default part of the world. The Sword Coast is D&D. The Forgotten Realms is everything else. And so, like, is there a part where like you would wish would be readdressed in more detail or just expanded upon greater?
Well, okay. When they started doing addition changes, jumps to the game, jumping the timeline, I said, guys, please don't do this and then put out another Waterdeep product one more time, because I haven't finished carpet bombing the world yet. I want to cover the entire surface of the globe, and I can't even get off the continent of Faerun.
Yeah.
I can't do the other continents because you will never... And then they would say things like, well, it won't sell. And I said, how do you know that? Because you've never published a product, so you don't know that it won't sell. Well, we know Waterdeep sells real well. Yes, because you do Waterdeep products over and over and over again. Of course they sell, because you take the aggregate sales of all these products you've pumped out, and then you use that as a self-justifying prophecy. If you build it, they will come. That sort of thing. We've had those arguments all over and over again. And I wanted to finish in between places. Murgoms, the Semphars, the Vilhan Reaches, the Chacentas, all the bits that link, the established bits where we get to run around in over and over again. And that hasn't happened. Because TSR used to have what they called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre every year, which meant by the end of the year, all of the departments had to have their druthers in, Jim Ward. And these were, here's what I want to publish this year. Well, the printer's in the other half of the same building.
Mm-hmm.
Lorraine and the vice president, financial, usually Willard Barton by the end, would say, okay, we got this much money. So they would then take all the products up and put them against the wall. And this happened around February 14th, so it was known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And they put bullets through products, killing them until they had enough products to match the money they had to produce products, because cash flow is a problem for every publisher. And this is their way of dealing with it. One particular product, I think it was is it Elves of Evermeet or the Thay product? Red Wizards, the original. It fell off, it got shot against the wall 2 or 3 years before it finally made the schedule. And the problem was that because there was always this inability to publish everything they wanted to publish, and it isn't just a cash flow for the publisher, it's for all the gamers out there. It's the same wallet they're hitting over and over again, which is why when they took the wrong message from, New World sell. So we bring out 4 or 5 or 6 settings, Birthright and so on. They're cannibalizing the same wallets. It's the same people who are buying them. They can't keep up. That sort of thing. And it's happened very recently in Magic with all of these special sets and crossover sets.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah. They keep plundering the same wallets over and over again. The same people are buying the same D&D products as well. And I know people who have a good amount of extra cash, and they're going like, I can't keep keep up with the Magic production and also buy D&D stuff, and buy other hobbies as well.
And
so
eat.
that's the thing that has always afflicted. I have never had the chance to go, except Return to Beer or Laracon. I managed to sneak a continent, on the cheap into the realms, put a continent there. But if we had to revisit something, it's the minefield. What do you do with Karatur?
Okay.
Do you redo it in a way that is sensitive culturally? Which you can't win. Some people will hate it no matter what you do. And the other thing is, if you do it culturally, it is a completely different culture than what we are used to with Dungeons and Dragons, which is hey, violence solves problems. Look, we've got these weapons and spells. Let's go out and kill some monsters. You have a completely different culture, which has a different way of dealing with things, and it's a slower way of dealing with things. So does it fit the D&D game? As a play experience, how do you handle that? What decisions do you make? And then, of course, these days there would be sensitivity people and so on involved, and they'd be changing things. And the problem with game design is you can't just willy-nilly change things that people have hashed out and worked on and play-tested maybe for months. And just, I don't like that. Let's change them all to blue. It means the end result is not going to be well. So that is a minefield, but that's one thing of we should handle it somehow at some point. What do we do? Just have the world roll out like a magic tapestry? So beyond Semphar and Murgon, there's a lot more space before we get to Karatur. And then we have new kingdoms, new realms to detail. It is actually a very long way if you're traveling on foot. I had a Realms fan on my Discord channel say, okay, my player characters have to flee Thay in a hurry, or the Red Wizard's going to blow them all up like firecrackers. And I figured the only way I can make it out is to go through the mountain passes to the east, because if I try and go west, they'll spot us for sure, and we won't make it. We'll get shot down like dogs. But we figure we can go east by accompanying this mining caravan and just sneak through the mountains. What's beyond there? And I had to just cover in detail. If you're on foot and you trudge through the mountains and you come down the other side, here are the first villages you find. Here's where the drinking water is. That level. Like you're going on a scout hike through Death Valley. How do you stay alive? So I covered it, and I realized later, I have now written for 15 pages, and I've only got them to here. Holy crap, that's a long way. It's sort of like walk across America. Here you are on the docks of the Hudson River. Start walking west. There's a compass, and it's a magic compass that interfaces with satellites, so having hunks of metal around it isn't going to lead you astray. It's always going to point west. Go west, young man, like Horace Greeley said, and you start going west. How many days is it going to be before you find yourself in the middle of the Great Plains? That sort of thing. And it was like, wow, there's a lot of territory here, which is a lot to explore, and eventually we have to tackle that. I think they're just going to punt it into the future forever right now.
I mean, if all it's filled goes, always hit it with an asteroid and reset it that way.
Yeah,
that's a little hard on the celestial bureaucracy, and all those poor people. But sure, we could do that. We can do the Cecil B. DeMille thing, where all the people run screaming like little ants, and then the tidal wave or the Sphinx or the entire pyramid crumples on them.
Yeah, I've always been partial for a kaiju to show up and just start eating stuff, All right,
You
Dan.
see, the thing is, if I was going to do that, sorry, Dan, I'll do it now. No, if I was going to do that, you remember that mid-credit scene at the end of Heads of State?
Uh-huh.
Where the guy who survives is telling all these girls at the bar the absolute truth about what had happened to him, and they don't believe him because it's so far-fetched. That's if you did the big thing to change it, that's what you do. You have Volo and Elminster sitting there and go, Should we tell them? Nah, they'll never believe it. Anyway, story, Dan.
Okay.
All right, here's your one.
Oh,
Yeah, you like went on a tangent for 3 different questions off of Christian, so calm down.
He's counting.
I hate to sort of like circling back to Dragon Magazine, but much like Jay and Christian, we're kids of the 80s and the 90s, and we definitely read it a lot, and you were in there a lot. Dracoliches, Cult of the Dragon. Came out in Dragon Magazine 110. As far as I know, the first mention of Dracoliches. There were undead dragons. You could animate a dragon, zombie dragon, whatever.
Yeah.
But like you literally wrote out in detail a ritual on how to go about doing this. Where did that come from? And like, was this like an assignment or something you just dreamed up and decided you wanted in your story?
I wanted to do a really cool undead dragon. Okay. And I was tired of looking at the monster manual and having the arguments. Well, how did somebody come up with a boulet? Was he just really drunk in the magic lab one time? I mean, you had to breed them. How did you get them to breed? And which is the old question of why did somebody think that this was good to eat? Who was the first guy to put this thing that looks like dung or rotten eggs or whatever in their mouths? Were they just really desperate or what? I love to know that story, and we never can. So I thought, okay, we're going to avoid that whole schmozzle about the weird monsters that were put together by mad wizards in labs by telling you at the beginning, so there will never be an argument. This is the new monster. This is how it comes about. And I'm actually at work, unabashed plug, because this may not come out for a while, because the company that was going to publish it is reshuffling their schedule frantically. But I have a friend who's working on a necromancy book. And one of the things he asked me to write for it was liches. How do you become a lich? What are the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different ways you can willfully, as opposed to inadvertently, become a lich? And what are all the wrinkles in the processes? What do you have to do to brew the potion of lichdom if you're using that method? What goes wrong if you get one of the ingredients wrong? All that stuff. It's all been partially covered here, there, whatever. Len Lukovka did a lot of them. But I wanted to, when doing the Dracolich, create it from the word go and say, this is what happens. And this is the pitfall. You've got this cult that wants to help dragons live forever. And they want to do it for their own purposes so they can control the dragons. And, in fact, I have quite a few dragons I've written into lore now, and Inferno is one of them, want to achieve eternal life or immortality, but they don't want to become Dracoliches because they don't want anybody to control them.
Of course.
In fact, if they can avoid being liches at all, so that they have no phylactery to protect, nobody can ever get control over them, that would be ideal. What's some other way? So, I already had a hilarious panel with a certain lady game designer, who I will not name because she may turn around and write this up, of what if dragons wanted to be vampires? So what if they allow themselves to get bitten by a vampire? Well, it's this, okay, and I'm thinking the Count, Count von Dracula, or Strahd, a guy in a flashy suit biting you on the neck, and you're a dragon. So what do? Oh, I'm a dragon. I'm going to shapeshift so I look like a beautiful woman with milk white skin so he can bite my neck. Do I want that? Why do I want that? To become a vampire dragon so I can live forever and turn gaseous. And it's like, and at which point she said, think of the farts. And and we dissolved into a. But you see, as a game designer, you then have to think that through. Some gamer's going to do it at the table, and you're going to go, okay, we have to have rules for that. It's not like a movie or a book where the author can decide you burst out of the burning building and you turn left, you have to be ready for the party members to turn right, go straight across the street, or turn around and go back into the burning building. You have to account for everything, so you have to nail everything down. So that's where Dracoliches came from, because I wanted to make sure this is all covered in their first appearance, where I'm creating them. And it was hilarious because it was for a anniversary issue of the magazine, and the editor of that section went along with my trick, and for once in life used my title for the article, which is The Elucidation of Elminster. Okay? To get it past the review guys inside
they
TSR.
Didn't know what that word meant?
Well, because they didn't realize I was doing Dracolich, a new undead. So they couldn't say, wait, only we get to create new, they couldn't do that. It was in print and out in the world before they knew.
Nice.
That's actually before Wavels butts in. I'm actually just flipping through a copy of that particular Dragon magazine right now, and I realized that you also wrote an article called "All About Elminster" in that, where you actually wrote down his stats.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because I was asked to.
Okay.
Set up Elminster so people can use them in their games. Interestingly, what I'm sitting on right now over there is a 5th edition write-up of Elminster that Wizards of the Coast gave me and insisted I use when I was portraying Elminster. Tommy Gofton does these live plays, and he did one called Legacy of Worlds. It's on his channel, and so on Six Sides of Gaming channel, in which Luke Gygax plays Mel. Teague plays the runaway bride of Victorina von Mordenheim. I play Elminster, and so on and so forth. So we had, the heavyweights of the D&D world playing their iconic characters.
That's
and
cool.
I said, okay, and he said, we have to nerf Elminster to 20th level. I said, fine.
Aww.
But then I turned around to Watsy and said, hey, do you have an official write-up for Elminster we can use at 20th level? So, what I do in these games is going to be okay with you. No, I won't be pulling rabbits out of hats and casting 6 meteor swarms in one round.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm going to be following the rules. So they gave me a huge long write-up. I think it's like 5-6 pages long. And first thing that happened is one of the guys who plays for Tommy in another live stream group, The Deadliest Dungeon, sat down with my character sheet and said, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I said, it came from Wizards. And he says, well, whoever did it at Wizards can't add. and he's rewriting all the stats, so that we went with that. And then in the middle of the live play, Keith Baker, creator of Eberron, is playing Merrick Stakhanith, the Baron, from the Stakhanith Baron from Eberron, and he looks over and says, well, let me see that. And he's reading it. And he says, no, they got that wrong. No, you can't do that with that spell. I said, but this is from Watsy. And he goes, really? Fix it again. So I'm now using a modified Elminster. He's still gross and everything, but that's the point. Elminster is of a level you shouldn't be challenging him. You should just steer him. Think of him as a speeding locomotive, and you want that building over there destroyed, not that building. So you steer the locomotive into the building you want.
Well, speaking of stats for Elminster, though, I feel like all of us here have played Baldur's Gate 3, including you, Ed, if I recall. Did you meet yourself in Baldur's Gate 3, and did you throw down with yourself?
I didn't get that far because everybody was overstressed for time. I'm in Canada in a rural thing with internet that is barely faster than dial-up. My computer at the time could not load and handle Baldur's Gate 3. So Ivan, who is a tech guru and lives in upstate New York and has oop-de-woofer computer set up and knows how to use them, ran the game, and they just talked to me through the video link saying, "What do you want me to do, boss? Do I attack him or not attack him?" That sort of thing. So he was actually doing the rolls and doing the game, because otherwise, and we didn't get that far because Ivan's even busier than me. I have like 3 jobs. He has like more. I get 3 hours of sleep at night. I wonder what he gets. I really do.
Since we were talking about stats, a side question that I had was like, do you think that there should be monsters that don't have stats?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That has been a complete, design shift over the years, from edition to edition. It's originally Gary had things like, do not go up against the gods.
Yeah,
you cannot defeat them. And if you look through the original deities, demigods, and its previous booklet things, their Odin's hammer never misses, that sort of stuff. You cannot defeat these people. You're not meant to. And then it shifted to anything the gods can do, the player characters should be able to do, including kill the gods and take their place. So it's a complete philosophy design shift from edition to edition. And therefore, you have to write up the gods differently. They have to have stats, and that was a great annoyance to Eric Boyd when he was doing our gods books for the realms, because he had to put in avatars. There's only so much space in a book. They're not like pixels. They're squiggles of ink on a page, and you've got a certain word count, and you can't expand it further. What he wanted to do was put in more, this is what it's like to play a priest. Here are your prayers for each day. Here's your taboos. Here's what you are encouraged to do by the creed of the faith that you can quote at people. And here's what the secular aims of the faith. We're going to try and corner the market on red velvet and get rich as a church. The secular worldly aims. And we wanted to put all of that in, which is all the stuff I've been working on before the Gods book. Instead, we had to have page after page of, if you try and kill Bane, here are his hit points, this is his armor class. And it was like, oh, for God's sake, to borrow a phrase, can we just accept that there are things that are beyond the players? It's the old, you spit into the wind and find your face wet. If you cannot connect cause and effect, you will die very quickly. And deserve to. Instead, no, I can do anything. This is a game where I can be all classes at once and be invincible, and because we now have a generation that's raised on computer games, where you can either use a cheat where you're invulnerable, or you die, and then 3 seconds later you're back up and fighting again, and your death meant nothing. So you can actually die multiple times in order to find all the traps in a lair and then triumphantly run through it. Real life doesn't work like that. If you try that on the freeway with actual automobiles, you don't get do-overs.
No. I actually just had a game where I was playing for a bunch of kids, around 10, 12 years old. And the scenario came where this gray ooze had basically critically hit him. And I was like, okay, this is going to hit your weapon and wrap around the weapon. And you have the opportunity to either let this thing hit your character and he dies immediately. No, you can't save out of this. It does too much damage to you. Or you can take half damage, just go down, but your weapon gets destroyed. This kid, no joke, looked me dead in the eyes and goes, I'll just let him die. I have more characters on character sheets behind me. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yep.
That's not the point, kid.
Yeah. But that's metagaming and not treating it like a role-playing game.
Yeah. He was very irritated that I didn't let him reintroduce his next character immediately. I was like, no, you're dead, man. You're dead, man. Sit out for a little while until I want to bring you in. And I think all of us grumpy DMs are all very much like you look at Cthulhu and he doesn't have stats. You just go insane.
Yeah.
The new Ravenloft book has stats for Cthulhu and a really cool mini coming out for him. But I'm just he shouldn't have stats. Like the Tarrasque, you know what? I love Godzilla. Godzilla is my favorite monster of all time. I don't mind that Godzilla can be defeated. He can have stats, okay? But there's some things just that are above him, that are just that much stronger that just shouldn't. And they should be obstacles that you need to avoid or solve or banish without, having just hit points. And I think that has lost a lot. And I have that conversation a lot with a lot of players.
Yeah, well, it's not even necessarily about things not having hit points, because things, obviously with the gods are things that are just beyond shouldn't. But there's, like, I'm running Dungeon Crawl Classics, and my players keep sort of banging their head against a wall. They're trying to fight a water elemental that is their third level. A water elemental has 16 hit dice, and they've tried twice to get around this thing and have just failed miserably. They nearly party wiped even interacting with it tonight. Sometimes you just have to put things
Run
out
away.
There like, you can flee.
Yes.
You do not
The
have
better
to
part
do
of
this.
valor.
Yeah. And yet, you now have a generation of gamers raised on computer games where death is meaningless. So I don't have to retreat. I can do stupid things. I can do silly things. I can play in traffic because there's no consequences. And I don't think the games are as much fun as when you know there are limits and consequences. We have to succeed within them. Now, it's different if your dungeon master is deliberately trying to deceive you, and that's unfair. I mean, metagame deceive you as opposed to deceive you in the game, because that's unfair on the dungeon master's part. But if you don't learn to get creative within limitations, then you haven't really achieved much of anything. I recall an early Milwaukee era Gen Con, 'cause I'm old, folks, in which we were playing a invitation charity game. And we had a brilliant young kid. I would say he was on the spectrum and so on. And he'd been sat down there, and one of the veteran TSR staffers was our dungeon master. And we were all sitting around. And he says, "And what do you do this round?" The young kid says, "Okay, well, I'm going to cast Fireball." He goes, "Okay, roll your D6s," and the guy rolls them. And then he turns to the next player and said, "And what do you do?" And the kid says, "I'm not finished yet. For my cleric spell this round, I'm going to cast Blade Barrier." And the dungeon master raises an eyebrow. He says, "I see. Are you done?" He goes, "Oh no, and then I've got to use my psionics." And he goes, "You can't do all those things." "Sure I can. Show me in the rules where I can't."
Oh no.
And it's like, and the guy says, "Let's apply logic for a moment. How can you speak the words of two spells at once? Because this is within the same round. This is the same 6 seconds action." And he goes, "I don't care. I get to win. That's what this game is about."
Oh no.
And you see, there's nothing there that says it isn't. There's nothing there since Gary is dead and gone. I'm not telling us you're all flawed. You all have to work as a team. That's why we have character classes, because nobody can be great at everything. You need to depend on your buddies. This is what soldiers in real life come back and tell us. I'm alive because of my buddies. We all
I feel
work
like I've
together.
had the same argument before with A, other players, and B, just game design critique in earlier editions. Third edition, when it first came out, there was a prestige class called Mystic Theurge, and it was like, hold on a second, you take a couple levels of wizard, couple levels of cleric, and suddenly you can cast both spells. Yeah. So haste yourself, because in third edition you could cast 2 spells with haste.
Yeah,
you could cast both your fireball and your blade barrier. I'm like, Jesus, this is who did this? This means that you can just do everything by yourself. Yeah.
And now, as 5th edition continues down this road, everybody's supposed to be a walking arsenal that's good at everything. What that means is
good at missy stepping.
Yeah, but you don't need your fellow party members anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible loss to the game of we have to work together. And then you get in, and it's even worse. I mean, if it's your friends whom you play with as a regular gaming group, you work these things out as human beings sitting around a table, and people either leave the group or we stop playing in that configuration, or you settle on house rules and what's understood. But when you're at a convention playing with strangers, and they're from, some other state of the Union or somewhere else in the world, and they play completely differently. I mean, I can recall playing in the AD&D Open one year, and we went to the keep that we were supposed to assault, and the dungeon master says, okay, night has just fallen. Do you camp and wait till the morning? Or do you attack it in the dark? We said, oh, we're going to be sensible. We'll camp and wait till the morning. He says, okay, everybody has to make a constitution roll because you're spending a night in the open. And he killed half the party. Right there. And he says, well, show me where in the book it says I can't do that. And it's sort of, okay, there's rules as written, and then there's common sense. How do you cover common sense situations when somebody else... Common sense isn't common. It's very rare.
Yeah.
Becomes more and more apparent as I grow older.
Yeah, and then you find yourself turning into your parents or your grandparents or get off my lawn,
No.
And I understand why old people get like that because of two things. They're in constant pain.
Yeah.
Their bodies break down. And the world is changing constantly. And they have no control over it. And when they were young, they thought the world was their oyster, and they would be the people who rewrote it and fixed things. Because their parents were shitheads, and they were going to do better. And now they've turned into their parents, and the world is running away from them, and they can't change anything. And what went wrong?
That's just a vicious circle.
Yeah.
So we are coming up on an hour, Ed. I still have many questions.
Keep going, as long as you guys want. I realize you have lives.
Yeah,
I don't.
No.
So...
We are perfectly fine. We're gonna end the episode here. We're going to send Craig out, have him get a new pad of paper, and come right back, and we'll boot him right back up, and we'll continue this. Sound good?
Sure. Yeah.